it's one of those movies where the main characters are on a quest, and it's the kind of quest that has some riddles involved, and whoever the threshold guardian is like, on the 5th day, look in the shadow of the great oak, and you will find the blue rose that only blooms in the ruins of love. And all the characters are like, what? How can it bloom in the, hey, mysterious soothsayer, what? Where did he go? And then they have to go and figure it out without the help of the mysterious soothsayer. And so they go on this very linear journey. And then all of a sudden, in kind of the fashion of the old campy Batman and Robin with Adam West, all the clues just quickly and efficiently come into alignment like they did for the Caped Crusaders. And the heroes on the quest are like, right there, it's the thing. And the ruins of love mean the ruins of that honeymooners hotel that's in the woods near Niagara Falls. And the blue rose isn't a rose at all. It's the type of beer that was brewed here in the 1960s. And I'm completely making things up. This is actually turning into a pretty good story. But you get done with it and you're like, I'm sorry. It's cool that you guys solved it and everything, and that you got your quest fulfilled, and then you found the missing kid or the sword of destiny or true love or meaning in life or whatever it is that you're trying to find on this quest. But I'm just going to go ahead and call objection on the part where you solved that impossible riddle that the soothsayer gave you, because no one could have ever possibly found those things. There were 10 billion different permutations of reality in one scene alone that would have caused you to miss a vital clue that would have been needed to solve everything. I go on and on and on, but my point is that sometimes you run into these things in literature and it just feels like that is unsolvable. I'm sure it's very important, and it's very important to you, mysterious, wise person, but I'm never going to actually know what you meant. Do we have one of those situations unfolding here in Matthew chapter 12, as Jesus continues to beat away at the Pharisees? You got 2 Sabbath controversies. You got Jesus strategically withdrawing. Then people follow him out. Jesus heals the demon-possessed guy. The demon-possessed guy is no longer blind and mute. The people are like, dang, that's really cool. The Pharisees are like, that is not cool. It's by Satan. And then Jesus is like, yeah, I think I can handle that lame argument. And he shoots down their dumb argument. And then he says a bunch of stuff about blaspheming the Holy Spirit. And then he goes even further into the thing, talking about the good and bad things that are within you coming out in what you say, and really nailing down the Pharisees as the bad guys. Then in verse 38, as we discussed yesterday, the Pharisees, who are the obvious bad guys of the passage, try to make a pivot and save a little face, and they're like, oh, no, hold on. We're very open to the idea that you might be this, whatever it is, teacher, miracle worker. Just maybe we could see another one of those signs. Just show us a miraculous sign, which is stupid because the whole thing that started the fight in the first place was that he did a miraculous sign and they said it was from Satan. Like, well, what's to stop you from saying it's from Satan again? So what is Jesus going to say in response to the Pharisees saying that they would just like to see a sign, please, even though they already just saw one? He answered, verse 39, Jesus answered, a wicked and adulterous generation, oh, this is going well, asks for a miraculous sign, exclamation point, but none will be given it except for the sign of the prophet Jonah. And we are off on our quest to figure out what the wise teacher is cryptically trying to communicate about the sign of the prophet Jonah. So maybe the first thought is the kid detective sleuths who are on the quest they've been sent on by this wise teacher might be like, wow, a sign of Jonah. Maybe there's somebody named Jonah in this stuff about Jesus. And so we could go through the genealogies. You got a Jotham and a Joda and a Janai and a Josek and a Joanan. But no, there's no connection to be made there. Well, I guess he could be talking about like the Jonah from the Old Testament. They don't neatly see how that connects. And then we read a little bit ahead. For as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of the huge fish. Aha! A clue! All right, so the mystery quest Jesus is sending us on that will answer the question of why the Pharisees and the teachers of the law represent a wicked and perverse generation for demanding a miraculous sign. The answer to that involves the prophet Jonah. And you, my friend, know what the rules are of being on a quest and finding a clue. You have to go chase it down. So I'm going to go back here to Jonah. And all right, what do we know about Jonah? Okay, we don't know exactly who wrote Jonah, but the story had to have come from Jonah. I mean, it has him being swallowed by a fish, but I don't think there's anybody else in there to be like, so, okay, I'm just going to jot this down. Looks like you're in a fish. So presumably The whole Jonah story, whether it is a misunderstood narrative that is using physical, fantastical imagery, and this genre of literature is something that is lost on us in a modern audience, and maybe we're not understanding the figurative nature of parts of it, or whether this is a literal account of the God who is in charge of everything, and I guess if he wanted to, he could have a giant fish eat a person and have somebody live in there for a while if he wanted to do that. Whichever way you view it, it is presented with the point of view character being Jonah, this prophet who prophesied during the time of a king named Jeroboam II. And this is in the early to middle 8th century BC. So we're talking a long time ago. And we are talking about the era that is pretty close to the height of Assyrian power. Now, the Assyrians were the worst people in the ancient world. The Egyptians were way cooler and more tolerant, even though at times they were obnoxious. The Babylonians were pretty rough. The Persians, they get a bad rap. The Persians were awesome. The Persians are brilliant and artful and to be admired overwhelmingly, despite a few foibles. But no, without any reasonable argument, the Assyrians were the bloodthirsty monsters of the north who did absolutely horrible genocidal things to advance their kingdom. And in the early to middle 8th century BC, when Jonah is prophesying, the ultimate bad guy, the nuclear-powered Soviet Union of my childhood, the Osama bin Laden of some of your childhoods, the Hitler of some of our oldest audience members' childhoods, the equivalent of all of those monstrous foreign specters for Jonah and his audience would have been Assyria, and there was no close second. They were horrible. Nineveh was this great big city. I've heard it was like the size of Fort Collins, Colorado, where Colorado State is. Big town. Maybe you've never been to this part of the world. You know what I'm talking about. 150-ish thousand people, maybe something like that. And it was huge and it was walled. It sits in the place that modern day Mosul, Iraq is now. People thought it was gone and that we were never going to find Nineveh again, but it turns out that it's exactly where the Bible said it was. And all those people, when it became trendy in the 18th and 19th centuries AD to be like, oh, there's no Nineveh, that's the Bible making stuff up. They all looked real bad when some sand shifted a little bit and some Middle Eastern dudes and some European dudes started digging Nineveh out of the sand, and the whole Assyrian empire that was long lost comes back to life. It was kind of a vindication for the Bible and for the book of Jonah because, hey, there it is. Well, the plot of the book of Jonah is that God is like, all right, guess what? Surprise. I am going to have you hustle up to Nineveh, and I'm going to have you address what's going on there, and you're going to proclaim that it's time for them to repent, kind of a John the Baptist role, and we're going to see what happens. And Jonah, uninterested in conducting his own one-person Operation Overlord or Operation Avalanche, instead decides to get in a boat and sail for Tarshish. The best case I've heard for where Tarshish is, though this would be a really fun video, maybe I should make this one of these days, is in Spain. Let's just say it's somewhere that is over water. Well, he gets in the boat, you know the story, storm comes up, Jonah's like, it's me. Just throw me in the water, guys. It's not your fault. It's totally me. I'm super sorry. It'll be fine. Just, no, seriously, throw me in the drink. And they do. And then he gets swallowed by this great big fish, and then he just hangs out in there for a while. And after 3 days, he gets barfed up on dry land. And it's kind of like one of those lame 90s horror movies where it just doesn't matter what you do. You're going to get killed in some elaborate, ridiculous way. Jonah is like, I get it. Like, no matter what I do, something's going to eat me or barf me back up. In one way or another, I'm going to Nineveh. Fine. I'm going. And then he goes to Nineveh and he wanders around the streets and he tells them calamity is on its way from the one true God. And the people of Nineveh are like, yeah, we don't know. Actually, no. For whatever reason, we just believe you this time. Okay, that seems credible and we wouldn't want to be destructed. So we're going to put on sackcloth and we're going to fast and we are going to apologize and entreat of God to please spare us. And even the king of Nineveh says, who knows, God may turn and relent and turn from his fierce anger so that we may not perish. And then God sees what they did and he's like, okay, well, that worked out the way that I wanted to. It's cool. All right, we're just going to move on from that. And then Jonah is super mad. And he's sitting out there getting ready to watch the fireworks, but instead he's grumpy about the physical conditions of where he's sitting watching the fireworks. And he wanted God's judgment for them, but wasn't very grateful for God's grace that he had received when he tried to run away and got eaten by a fish, really delivered by a fish, 3 days in the belly of the whale. And then God teaches him this lesson at the end about like, hey, it's 120,000 people in that city. Like, let's keep it together here, man. You're losing your perspective on the whole thing. Gigantic paraphrase of all 4 chapters of Jonah. our mind. So now that that is fresh in our brains, we will be ready next time around to return to our quest and figure out how that story from 800 years earlier about Nineveh and fish and destruction, but then not destruction, and then kind of a lecture at the end, how that in some way translates into what is going on with the Pharisees demanding a sign and Jesus being like, no signs for you this time around. Wow, that was fast. Hopefully it sets the table really well for what we're going to do next time around. Thank you to everybody who supports the program at patreon.com/the TMBH You're awesome. Thanks to everybody who decided to pass this along to your friends here in the last week or so. I noticed new people jumped in, and that's really awesome. So, hey, new people, welcome. I'm ridiculously glad that you're here. I hope that you're having fun with the thing. And if at any point you decide you want to jump back to the beginning and start there, you can, or you can just keep cruising ahead with us. You'll piece it together as we go along. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour podcast. Let's do this again soon.